start now. So hi everybody and welcome to today's Future You webinar, Getting to Grips with Postgraduate Study. Today I'm joined by Tom and Sally and we'll have 20 minutes to discuss everything postgrad, and then we'll have 10 minutes at the end to answer any of your questions that come in. So please feel free to make use of the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom page, and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. So to kick us off, Tom, would you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your job role?
Sure, I'm the postgraduate marketing manager at the University of Hertfordshire, looking after predominantly the UK market. Probably been in the role for 2 years. And prior to that, I've been a PG student myself. So I've been at Cardiff University, did strategic marketing there. So know all the things about postgrad from a student's perspective, and also I suppose now what to look for as a potential postgraduate student.
Okay, Fab and Sally, do you be able to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your job role?
Yeah, morning everybody. I'm Sally Elsmore. I'm the Head of Student Recruitment and External Affairs for Rose Bruford College. That's a performing arts institution. I've worked at UCL, University of Leicester and De Montfort University. So lots of experience of different kinds of institutions and the kinds of things that postgraduate students need to consider at each of those. So look forward to speaking to you.
Brilliant, thank you both. So if we just kick off with some questions, Tom, if I put this one to you first, and then Sally, if you can jump in after then. It's a slightly broad one, but could you tell us the advantages and disadvantages of undertaking postgraduate study?
Sure, yeah. I think the big one is the value of postgraduate study, isn't it? After you finished an undergraduate degree, what's the value it's going to bring of staying on and doing an extra bit of postgraduate study? I'll do the disadvantages first. There's not many. I suppose it's the more study. You've just done it your 3 years study. You've got to stay on for another year. Quite daunting. You could have a bit of study fatigue. So actually, but on the positive to that, then I suppose staying on for the additional year, getting the additional experience from postgraduate study and specialising in your subject area will make you sort of more prepared for the workplace. And then the other one, I suppose, is affordability is the other big issue that comes up with postgraduate study. But so there is a way around that. There is, it does cost, sort of the fees for PG study, but there is a PG loan that you can access to help fund your studies and sort of other available funding streams. So they'd be I suppose, the two main ones. But on the positives, sort of this, that it's there's a lot of people now with undergraduate degrees. It's a competitive marketplace. Postgraduate study is a real opportunity to differentiate yourself in the market between your other potential students and stand out. To get that specialism within your course, sort of your area of interest and what you're passionate about. And also as a postgraduate study, there's the option then to really gain that experience sort of within your area of interest, whether it's going on a placement, live briefs. There's a lot of opportunities to network with relevant industries and really bolster that CV. So actually when you go in for a job, prior to postgrad study, you've got a lot more meat there to talk about on your CV about your education that not necessarily get at an undergrad level. So I suppose that'd be the big one. The other bit then, I suppose, earning potential, sort of the big stuff with sort of postgraduate study with the graduate outcomes, earning potential is better. I suppose that master's graduates on average earn £5,500 at 5 years after first years of study. Your career options, that 18% are in a sort of higher educated role after finishing with PG study. And also the big one, I suppose, career satisfaction. So we've all got sort of got to go to work and go to job. You want to enjoy what you do, and I think sort of with those postgraduate study, 4% more sort of happy within their role. So I said, yeah, I think they're the big ones really, sort of in terms of what's the value that PG study can bring. It's to give you those more career options and a better career moving forward into the future.
And Sally, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just to speak to those that not continuing from undergraduate study, but mid-career professionals, really. Postgraduate study can be great if you're looking to upskill and sort of progress through your career, or if you're looking to change discipline slightly as a little bit of a sideways step. It is an advantage. The disadvantage, of course, if you're a mid-career professional as opposed to a progression student, is the time. So you're either going to have to take a year away from your career, or you're going to have to balance work and study, which needs careful consideration. But it's postgraduate study is a great opportunity. If you have a clear idea where you want to go, find the institution that offer that course, and it will help you get ahead in your career, probably quicker than if you just stayed in the role you were in. But yeah, consider the time.
That's brilliant, thank you. And then Sally, if we can come to you first for the next question. So thinking about kind of work placement opportunities, job opportunities, and broader than that as well, can you tell me what students should look for when picking a postgraduate course?
Yeah, absolutely. So my best advice would be think what you want to gain out of this study. Where do you want to get you to, and then look at the courses that will get you to that place. So if you're wanting to change careers, you might want to look at a broader course which will give you more choice after you graduate, or if you're looking to progress in a certain field, you might want to look for a course with a really specific course title and a really specific curriculum, so that you get really niche skills that are going to make your CV stand out against others in the market. A good thing to look for is when you're looking at these courses and attending open days, look at who teaches you. Are you being taught by the program director? Are you being taught by postdocs? Are you being taught by people from other faculties? Because it really matters, and it will affect what you learn. And all of those people are great teachers and they'll teach you great things, but it's important to understand if a program's advertised with a program director, but the teaching's done by somebody else, their specialism is likely to be slightly different. So really take time to look at that and understand who's going to be teaching you. And then the second thing to examine is, how will you be able to apply what you've learned in the workplace? So is there a placement opportunity? Do people from industry come in and brief you? Try to understand that, because that's the thing that employers will really want to learn about in your interviews for jobs. They'll want to know what you learn that's going to help them and their business.
Brilliant. And Tom, have anything you'd like to add?
So yeah, totally agree with that. It's sort of looking at your career path and where you see yourself going. It's that if a course might, for your career interest, you might need an accreditation, see if that's available. Look at the course content versus almost a job advert. Actually, sort of, does that marry up with, I suppose, the latest industry trends? Is there stuff when you get to an interview that you can talk about on your CV? Is there opportunity to work on live briefs? Is there opportunity to work with local employers, actually, that you can really showcase your skills when looking for a job? I think those are some of the big ones. The student support available as well. So actually, during and after your course, that is there career support afterwards to help you, sort of progress on the ladder. Is there the academic support while you're doing the course that, if you need help and support, that there's that's there at the school to help you facilitate that. And this was location as well, really sort of looking, if you're looking to sort of relocate or go to another area, is there, what's the jobs market like within the local area? So is the university well connected there with sort of local industry connections? Just to sort of, when you come out and finish your degree again, you can really get the value and see that, that your postgraduate study has really sort of helped you to land the job that you want to get.
Brilliant, thank you. And then if we come to you again, Tom, and then back to Sally. If somebody was considering undertaking a master's, what could they expect from that course? Maybe in terms of, is it dissertation? Is it exams? The structure? Does it differ from master's to master's? Would you be able to just give us some information on that?
Yeah, definitely. It's it does vary per course, and it's depending if you can do a one-time full-time course, which is similar as to your undergrad, where you'd have 3 semesters, usually say September, January, and then April, with modules throughout the year, finishing either an exam or a piece of coursework, and then finishing with a large project. And sort of dissertation, then that would be sort of 1 year full-time. If you're in employment already, you can space that out with more flexible study over sort of 2 to 3 years to help manage that, create that flexibility around sort of work and study. I suppose that one of the big fees of postgraduate study, the students think, what's the level? Like, it's another year of study, but actually comparing undergrad and postgraduate study, I didn't find it any more challenging and probably more enjoyable because it was more specialist, an area I really enjoyed and really liked. I sort of it was not I wouldn't worry about, I suppose, the level of postgraduate study. I suppose the other thing is probably class sizes as well. They're usually a lot smaller, sort of workshops and seminars, which is great again. So you can really, I found really beneficial where you can really challenge and question academics and have a closer relationship then to really sort of get an understanding of your subject area. The last bit against that, I found there's a bit more opportunity to network, to meet employers was at postgraduate study level, and then working on life briefs as well. So they might, for marketing, for example, I had live agency briefs that we worked on as part of the course, which was again was invaluable when it came to talking at interview level.
Brilliant. And Sally, would you like to add anything to that one?
Yeah, just briefly to sort of flag up that you should expect a research element in your study. So that could take, depends what you're studying, obviously. If you're an engineer, it'd be very different to if you're studying law, but it could take the form of a literature review and be a large written piece, or it could be a practical study. Look closely at that, because lots of universities will give you a list of the subjects where they have researchers in the area, and you kind of have to fit in with the researchers they've got for obvious reasons. So just make sure that if you do have a very specific thing that you want to explore, and the research is quite often the most enjoyable bit of the course, that they have the corresponding expert that you want to study, or that if you don't have any idea what you want to do, that there's the choice there that you'll be able to choose from when it comes time to do that project. That, I would say, the research project is probably the area that most postgrads sort of don't think about, and then when it comes time to choosing a project, they wish they would have looked into it more in the early stages. So that's something to look out for.
Perfect, thank you. And we had one of these questions to answer, but it's also come in to the Q&A as well. It's what can applicants expect from the interview process? Tom, if we can start with you and then move to Sally.
Yeah, I'd say similarly, they'd be wanting you to expand on your sort of personal statement. Start off, I suppose it's a great thing that they're interested in you, your application's gone well, they want to come speak to you and sort of learn a little bit more about you as a person. So again, I'll be looking at your motivations really for postgraduate study. Why do you want to study? Why do you want to study at the university? I suppose a good bit of research beforehand will really help sort of the interview process. So like looking back at the sort of the industry you want to work in and current trends, looking at the academics that will be interviewing you. So looking at their research and some of their areas of expertise to be able to question. And then and also I suppose then just the university itself then. So again, really sort of having questions ready for the interviewee really to really show your interest in postgraduate study at the university.
And Sally, do you have anything you'd like to add?
All of the above, definitely. But someone said in the chat box, is it the same as a job interview? It's a slightly different process, but I would still recommend researching it as if it was. Still dress, professionally, smart, casual. Do your research, find out about the people that you're going to be working with. And you should expect, if it's a practical subject, potentially a workshop type environment where you'll work with other applicants. So don't be surprised if that crops up. And that's quite often, if you're applying to be a performing artist, they want to see you in performance mode. So don't be alarmed if that's part of the process. Just try and enjoy it. And enthusiasm, I think, is the big thing. Academics always say to me, that applicant was so enthusiastic, that applicant really was interested in my subject, and that stands out. So apply for things you want to do.
Brilliant. Tom, would you like to add anything?
All good for the interview. Yes.
Perfect, not a problem. So Sally, we'll kick off this question with you first. Could you just give a little bit of guidance on funding, maybe in terms of like websites they might be able to find information, how they go about doing that? Would you just be able to shed some light on the funding side?
Yeah, certainly. So postgraduate courses vary in price quite a lot across the sector. So if you're considering more than one programme at more than one institution, do compare the prices and have a look how those differentiate and try to understand potentially why the prices might be different. You can access a government loan to support you with your postgraduate study. You could consider doing a part-time course that you could work alongside. And you can also access bursaries and scholarships. The best place I would recommend to start with that would be the institution. If you've narrowed it down to an institution, check their website for bursaries and scholarships. But also that I know the Prospects website has loads of information and loads of sort of signposts. It is quite an admin heavy process to find out how you're going to self-fund if you're employed, or obviously some people are lucky enough their employer will pay for it. But if you're self-funding, do take the time to look around at your options, because although it can seem quite laborious, you could end up finding out that you're eligible for this bursary. It's going to save you 10 grand. It's really worth putting the time in.
And Tom, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd say similarly that I suppose a lot of people are aware of the postgraduate loan. It's sort of launched, sort of about 5 years ago. It's sort of up to £11,500, that you can claim for the study. The other bits is, I suppose, if you're an undergraduate at the current university, some offer like alumni discounts. At Hearts we offer 20% to stay on to current graduates. And similarly, sort of bursaries and scholarships, they can be, there's multiple places. It'd be great if they were all in one place, but I think one of the good ones is Turn to Us, which is ac.org, which is a charitable, which offers grants to students there who could be able to access funding that way. But again, speak to your employer as well if you're currently within employment and see they're happy to fund your study. Again, if you can prove that value of what that's going to bring to the business in the long term, that's a great avenue to potentially help with funding for your course. Would be the main ones for me.
Yeah, thank you. And slightly broad question, but Sally, if we start with you, can you tell us what qualities make a good postgraduate student? So if somebody's looking to study postgraduate, what would they really need in abundance to make it an enjoyable experience as well for them?
That's a great question. I think across the board, dedication is one of the things, because postgraduate study is going to be challenging. The subject matter is going to be more demanding, and you're likely to be undertaking the study while trying to balance other things. So you need to be dedicated to the course that you've chosen. And the other thing that I think comes more into play perhaps than at undergraduate level is teamwork. Particularly on if you're undertaking a practical research project or across other modules of study, you may be working with people from other courses or PhD students or sometimes even undergrads. So you need to be prepared to sort of share and collaborate to get the most out of your study.
I
And Tom?
think the big one's that passion for the subject, so from undergrad level to PhD level, and being curious, not afraid to question academics and sort of getting this, the theory and how that applies in practice. So it's going into the workplace, then you're armed from a practical perspective about how that works out within the workplace. Classically good time management, sort of balancing your other commitments, sort of making sure you hit your deadlines. And the other bit is, I suppose, it's to be curious. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There'll be certain sort of modules and subject you'll be a strong suit. But then others, it might be sort of not so as sort of a marketer, like, you love the creative and the consumer behavior, but sort of the stats, the numbers was a little bit more challenging, but actually sort of reaching out and acting there to help you and support you through your journey. So it's asking help and support. And I said for stats, for example, then it sort of came up as one of my top marks. So don't be afraid to ask for help and support as well. That the university are there they want you to succeed. They want you to do well. Giving you the tools, whether that's sort of networking events or industry connections or briefs, if somebody knows that the help is there, that actually though, but it's not going to be given to you on a plate. You know what I mean? Like you said, you need to be driven, you know, sort of you need to be dedicated. You'll have, you know, you come out and you've got this great, you know, qualification at the end of it, but also the time within university, you've also got to be proactive at making those connections, getting the experience to really add, you know, sort of weight there. So when you come out there, you land the job that you want.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you for answering those questions, guys. It's really, really informative. We've just hit our 20-minute mark, so if we move into the Q&A, I've been keeping my eye on them, and there seems to be lots of similar style questions. I think there'll be a broad audience that finds these answers really interesting. But I'll just read the question out, and then whoever wants to jump on and answer it, feel free. So if we start with, put these two together, is it possible, and if so, are you able to go from, I'll reword that, I've done it terribly. Are you able to go from an undergrad to postgrad that are two very differing subjects? And if so, what advice would you give to somebody doing that? For example, if someone was doing French at undergrad, but they went on to do postgrad politics, would that be possible?
Yeah, it usually is an option, but what I would say is you need to open up a discussion with the programme team to articulate to them why you want to make such a drastic change. And they may come back to you and say, you will struggle with the curriculum, you need to go off and do this prior reading, or you need to go and spend a year in industry to get an understanding of the subject. It really depends what you're going from and to. But I would say if you're really passionate and you want to do that, speak to the programme team. They'll tell you clearly whether you'll be ready for postgraduate study in a different subject. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, definitely. I think it very much subject dependent, isn't it? And then it's speak to the academics and help forge the path. What's right, that there are conversion courses that can do in some areas. Some things at undergraduate might be more generalist, that there's that you can try easily enough, where there's sort of a bit of crossover of learning grad level to postgrad. But yeah, definitely speak to the people at the university, really. But there are options available there that you can transition from subjects, because appreciate that at undergrad level going in, there's sort of that you're not necessarily know what you want to do further down the line, but you do. So, but I said, yeah, at universities that we're here to sort of help facilitate and sort of help you make that transition.
Brilliant. There's been three very similar questions that have just come through, and it's about managing time and the time commitments of postgraduate study. So if a mature student who was balancing childcare, work and studies, or somebody who wanted to think about extracurriculum activities, how would they go about managing their time? Does it differ greatly to undergrad courses? Is a lot more time spent, or is there slightly less? Could you just go into a bit of detail about please? Whoever wants to jump on that one.
I think it's classic again. It does depend on the course. I find more of a business or sort of engineering or law a bit more time intensive, but sort of with face-to-face lecture time compared to say humanities or arts. So, but what again, you can vary the length of the course. Sort of like you can have an intensive 1 year or over sort of a couple of years to space it out. Childcare are options at that, because the student support's a big bit of that. That it's we're here to support academically with childcare, with actually postgrad study is achievable. That we've all got lives or trying to and sort of busy work schedules. That postgraduate study is definitely achievable, and study is flexible around your life and supports it. So yeah, it would, I suppose, depend on the course, but yeah, it is definitely flexible learning options to help facilitate and get the qualification you're looking for.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that as well. In my experience, if you're unsure whether to do, say, a part-time or modular flexible, err for the side where it's less intensive, because a lot of students tend to start off thinking, I can dedicate myself to this, I can make it work around the kids and the job, but you will put yourself under an incredible amount of pressure. And to get the most from your study, it would be better to take it over a long period, in my opinion, and really be able to sort of focus on it and get the best out of each module, rather than feeling like, oh, you know, I've got this essay to do, I've got all this other stuff, and the stress that students put on themselves is quite intense. So I would say, if you're unsure between which type of study, err for the side that's less intense. And always consider online study as well, which tends to be a lot more asynchronous, which means you learn at the time of day that suits you, and that can be a really, really good option for people who are returning to study as well.
That's brilliant, thank you. We did touch on this question earlier, but maybe just to go into a touch more detail for Alice, when thinking about postgraduate study, maybe more in terms of how much weight should you put on university reputation and ranking compared to specific modules location, for example, when deciding on a course?
To be honest, I said it was, you know, from a student experience, you know, it's the two bigs for me was, I suppose, you know, sort of being, then there was the stigma of Russell Group in the past, but actually, I suppose, looking back now, it's not important. I suppose what really was important, I said, was the content within the course, and, you know, what experience that I could sort of actually say to employer. I sort of found at the end that it was a lot of theory. Actually, what I needed was, you know, could I talk about a live brief? Could I talk about, did I use the equipment or the facility in industry that really, the language of employers where they understand it? And I suppose course content was really important. And also look where, like, sort of the peer group. So alumni is a key one. So actually, reputation for me would be almost where have graduates gone on to work for, or have they gone, you know, sort of for the big brands, you know, affected, you know, so you can say Google, Apple, good indicator as whether the course is respected within industry, and also again, yeah, the other peers, you know, sort of your friends, your family, parents, students, academics, are great ways to sort of understand whether the course has value.
Brilliant. Would you like to add anything to that question, Sally?
I think that's a great tip from Tom. Look at where the graduates are working. That'll tell you how well respected the course is. I think I'll beg to differ a little bit about reputation, because if you look at the league tables and you've got an institution that's higher up compared to an institution that's lower down, there's a fair chance that institution will have more budget to spend on your course. So the facilities might be better, the teaching might be better, the research outputs might be better. It totally depends what subject area you're looking at. So I would consider league tables. It's not something that I would write off, but it's not probably the most important. That's very sitting on the fence, isn't it? But there we go.
No, that's brilliant. I think that's great advice. We're coming up to full time now. So I'd just like to say thank you so much to Tom and Sally. Your input and advice, I'm sure, has been absolutely brilliant to all of our attendees. And thank you for answering all of the questions. I'm really sorry to everybody who didn't get an opportunity to answer your question. There is loads of postgraduate information on the Prospects website. So if we didn't get a chance to answer your question, please just pop onto there and have a look through there. You might find the answer to your question on there.